Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the 12th of November. Welcome all of you as you come in. As usual, I'm here being the producer, the director, and the control operator, and all of those things. Had a few more technical difficulties this morning, but I think I've got it up and running. You've noticed I've had to go back to kind of my old setup a little bit. Using the green screen is is really touchy. And so some days it seems to work all right, and then others it does not. And I suspect it's operator error. I have two different cameras that I use, and depending upon which camera I have, it's easier or it's more difficult. And unfortunately, the camera that I'm using at this location is the one that's more difficult. So at any rate, we're up and running, and that's the important part. The chat is on. So again, welcome everyone. And as you know, I said in my last video that things were going to start picking up a little bit on this coup situation. And so I feel that it's absolutely necessary, at least for my part, to come on and talk. You know, I listened to Greg Jarrett and, of course, Sean Hannity and Dan Bongino and Sarah Carter, and I could name a lot of others, Lou Dobbs, on and on and on. And then I listened to the what Donald Trump says is the fake stream media, you know, the other MSMs, and the difference between the two takes on what is happening is just so tremendous, so far that it's really hard to tell what's going on. Even though I trust, you know, I think Lou Dobbs has good intent, and of course I think Dan Bongino, Lee Stranahan do, even though they're at odds with each other over issues and things. Sean Hannity, I think more as a cheerleader than anything else. Not that you can't get good information there, but you know, I even talked to you about Paul Ferber the other day. And like I said, you know, that's a lot of hopium as far as I'm concerned. I'm not sure that any of that, I'm not certain of a source. It almost seems like another iteration of the Coup phenomenon. Some things you can kind of anticipate by knowing the system and figuring out how things are. But it doesn't matter whether you go to the MSM, alternative news media, or even these other, you know, clandestine organizations that refuse to reveal their sources or even who they are. It's really hard to put together unless you take a look at the players directly. And so that's what I've been doing, and I don't see it working out very well, as you all know, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I don't like what I'm seeing, and I've been saying that for some time. You know, I've said all along that I don't trust the flag officers, the general officers, primarily, you know, Brigadier General, Rear Admiral on up to the 4 stars. They're all political animals. That's what they're in there for. They have their investments in the military-industrial complex and in their seat in the New World Order, etc. So I'm not really certain that the majority of them are trustworthy. They have other motives, and I'm certain of that. And I've also said, of course, that 06, Colonel and Captain, Colonel in the most of the services, Captain in the Navy, and they're very suspect on a lot of levels. And now we're down with Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. We're down to the field officer middle ranks, Lieutenant Colonel, and I'm sure it goes down further than there, as I've talked about many times. So I felt like after this thing with Haley came out the other day, of course, all of you know that former ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, whom I've never trusted, okay, ever. I think she was a never-Trumper, actually, and contrary to the Constitution and to the true American Republic. It's really odd that, and Rush Limbaugh pointed it out, did she tell Trump this information that Kelly and Rex Tillerson, General Kelly and Rex Tillerson were working against him? Did she wait until the book was published to bring that out? And she answered that and said that she did talk to him. You know, and I have no idea. And Trump's apparently not going to state one way or the other. But frankly, as many people said back even two and a half years ago, we were talking about these people in the administration that were contrary to Trump and what they were doing. We could see it. Why Trump couldn't, I don't know. Or whether he just chose not to, or whether he thought he could control it. I have no idea. But these things have been going on from the very beginning. We all know that. I pointed out again that I didn't trust Kelly. And of course, I didn't trust McMaster. I think Trump would have done a lot better bringing somebody like Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer in as the National Security Advisor. And then Chief of Staff, I don't know, anybody but a swamp creature. I know having to understand how the White House works and all that is kind of important, but at the same time, look at where we are today. Well, I'm kind of rambling on. As usual, may I ask if the sound is okay? That's, of course, my major concern. I can lose the picture, other things, but if we lose the sound, that's just not good. So maybe you could just let me know that that's all right. And again, good morning, everyone. I didn't sleep well last night because of all the things I've been looking at. 5x5, great. Thank you, Shockwave. I appreciate it. All right. Let's get into Nikki Haley again. I don't know what her motivations are. It can't be to help Trump unless she's got to know at this point that the coup is actually gaining momentum on a number of fronts. I see it, and anybody who's willing to stop listening to the smooge from Fox, from Jarrett and Carter and those people. That's what they're doing. They're saying that things are coming along. I have said repeatedly that these military people wouldn't be coming out in the open and siding with the coup, which is actually what they're doing, unless they thought from their professional viewpoint and from their selfish viewpoint that the coup has an extremely high success rate of success. Chance of success. I don't care what Barr's doing anymore. I don't care what Durham's doing anymore. My eye is now looking at the intelligence people that are in our government, primarily right now in the Senate and the House. I don't care what they're saying about what happens when this vote gets to the Senate, or that this whole thing is dead now. You got to understand, these people don't operate under law. I can't believe Lindsey Graham says, well, if they don't do this and this and this, it's going to be dead in the House. These people don't abide by rules. They change the rules as they go. These are tyrants. These are authoritarians. These are very dangerous people. Remember Darth Vader? He says to them, I think it's Cal Ridge, he says, you've changed the terms of our agreement. And Darth Vader says, pray I change it no further. Well, that's how these people are. They don't care. So, again, I look at the actual activity that's going on, and I would say that with the way the military is acting right now, we are in a lot of trouble. Kelly was just the tip of the iceberg. McMaster was just the tip of the iceberg. We've seen, like I said, McRaven, Mattis talking. Where Petraeus really is about that America's done and the North American Union is the future. They stomp on the Constitution of the United States. They stomp on the Bill of Rights. And Barr is no better. I don't give a whole lot of... I was hoping that the military... I don't give any hope right now to the Department of Justice. And I'm not saying that they won't bring some people forward. But, wow, this is like we're on the razor's edge of it could go one way or the other. But with the military shifting, and I think that's what we've seen here, and I've predicted it all along, that if Trump didn't take control... See, one of the things you learn in the military, and I mentioned it the other day, don't say, I'm gonna do. You've got to act. What are you going to do, LT? What you going to do, LT? LT is lieutenant. This is really common amongst newly commissioned officers, lieutenant ranks in the Army. They're green. Their bars are still soft. They're butter bars. They even talk about it. What you going to do, LT? Well, that's what they were doing to Trump. What you going to do? We're doing this. What you going to do, POTUS? What you going to do? And he didn't do anything. He didn't act. Oh. Well, this guy doesn't know anything, so we're gonna start, giving him trouble, just like the NCOs and the enlisted will give the lieutenant trouble who doesn't learn his job quickly and take control. That's what we're seeing. They played along with it for a little while. I don't trust General Milley. I saw how he was acting when President Trump and Nancy Pelosi were having that interaction, that meeting a few weeks back where Nancy Pelosi and Schumer walked out. If you look at Milley and see how he's acting, that's a signal that there's something going on there. And his other thing about wanting to go to war with Russia and the body bags, and he's just a blowhard. I don't trust him. Let's talk about Vindman. So we already know Haley's outed Kelly and Tillerson. Well, Tillerson was gone anyway. But the question, as Rush Limbaugh says, did she actually tell Trump? And really, we don't know the answer to that. Okay, we don't. And why would Haley suddenly jump ship to support Trump? I smell a rat. I smell a rat. So that's all I wanted to say about Nikki Haley. Let's go to Vindman. I had a person DM me the other day. I have not accepted them as somebody that I exchange DMs with. I'm very careful with that these days. Many times when I've opened up that door, it's turned out to be a bad deal. Oh, and by the way, in that same vein, I am certain that my channel, since it is not commercially viable, is probably up for the chopping block in December. And no, the few advertisements that show up on my channel are due to the limited amount of copyright content that I use, either with permission or, of course, giving royalties to the people that come up with it. And normally it's clips that I use, which I'll always give credit to the original person. But sometimes all the music, basically, most of the music that you hear is mine, and I don't have to give anybody else credit for it. But occasionally, like when Pam Jones made those introductions for me, she used copyrighted material, and I've done a little of that too. When that happens, those advertisements are for the people that created those things, and they deserve them. But as you know, I'm not monetized. I've never tried to be because I knew there would be problems if I did. First of all, I don't want to come to depend upon anybody like YouTube for any type of income, because look what's happening, look what's happened to people. So I wouldn't do that. Second of all, I didn't feel like that my message should be commercialized, and so I've tried to prevent that as much as I can. I'm not out for fame. I'm not out for fortune. I was out to pay back karma, as most of you who have followed me for a long time know. And some of you will say, well, don't use that word. Well, it fits for the situation. So at any rate, I would say that the chances are very high that because my YouTube channel is not commercially viable, that it will probably have an expiration date on it in December. So if that happens, don't be surprised, okay? We'll march on until that actually happens, but just in case it does, just know that that's something that I anticipate, okay? Start it back up. I don't know. Janet and I just happened to gaze over. I've considered it. There are other venues out there that I could use, and I haven't ruled them out. But, I think once we reach that point and Trump and the administration, the government has not done anything to protect us, you know where you stand. Okay? You know where you stand. My big thing has been there's been subversion against the First, Second, and Fourth Amendments, even by POTUS himself. And, with what's happened in Mexico, we're going to touch on that a little bit today. Those people from Colonial LeBaron have packed up and are leaving and are coming back to the United States. These are portents of very bad things that are around the corner. The United States has been, we're so concerned about events in the Middle East that we don't take care of our own, and we don't take care of what's happening in our own backyard. And if any of you have ever owned a home and you don't take care of yourself first, what happens? The weeds grow, the house falls apart, burglars come in, your neighbors call the cops because they're tired of you not taking care of your business. despite all appearances, we're not taking care of business. We're not. Okay, just wanted to get that out of the way. Colonel Vindman. When I first saw him, I saw an overweight guy as a lieutenant colonel. The height and weight requirements in the Army also are used for officers. Why was he getting away with being the pig that he is? And he is. Because he probably is, as I said, a CIA embed. Or at least the CIA has their teeth in him in some way or another. And other people have called that out as well. And his jobs point to it. Everything about him points to it. Actually, I had a friend, I don't know if you all know who Mark Hoffman is. Mark Hoffman was a documents, he claimed to be a document examiner and a document finder. He was supposedly out there searching for these documents, old documents, and he would sell those documents when he found them. And in one case, he found a thing called the Salamander Letter. He said he found it. And he sold it to the Mormon church for a large sum of money, who then, the church, then locked it up and said that, nobody's going to look at it. They wanted to hide it because they thought that it was genuine and that it would hurt their church history, what they claimed. Well, then it turns out Mark Hoffman, he's almost discovered, so he starts bombing people. This is back in the 80s. And he kills a few people, and then the police finally figure out that it's him. And he's a document forger, not a document finder. And Vindman, this person that called me up, he says to me, I was looking at Vindman, I was trying to figure out who in the hell he looked like. And he says, I finally figured out it was from Mark Hoffman, the document forger from the 80s that messed up the LDS church and fooled even the president, prophet, seer, and revelator about a document that wasn't even real. So anyway, you LDS people out there, I'm sorry to hurt your feelings, but that's history. Go look it up. So, Vindman's overweight. His track record implies very strongly that he is CIA connected in one sort of way or another. He says during his testimony that he thought that Trump was pushing the wrong things and advancing the wrong thing, and apparently admitted to telling certain Ukrainians at his level to ignore Trump. Keep that in mind. Also, he was wearing his uniform in his testimony. A lot of people have pointed that out. Why? Was it? Well, obviously it was to give credence to the coup. Right? That's the reason why. But there is a problem with the UCMJ in doing that. Okay, I'm just telling you. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Just a perusal of what Vindman has done at this point. There's nothing wrong with an officer coming forward and being a whistleblower. I testified against senior officers on a couple of occasions, and it was necessary because there were real problems involved, okay? It wasn't this made-up crap of a coup or trying to take down a commander. That wasn't my intent. As a matter of fact, I was subpoenaed into court, not asked to testify. I was subpoenaed into court, ordered into court, and basically all I did is tell the story. Vindman's not doing that. Vindman's putting on a show. Some things that he's done that should be disciplined under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, as I see it at this point. Wearing his uniform in a civil, outside of a military setting to sway a political situation. Interfering with his commander and basically subverting his commander's intent, his commander's orders. Insubordination, conduct unbecoming of an officer, even mutiny. He has Article 92 violations, as Senator John Ratcliffe so poignantly showed. And he's also had Article 88 violations, all under the UCMJ. 98, I'm sorry. So 92 is failure to obey an order or regulation, and Article 98 is noncompliance with rules, with procedures that are regulatory. Okay, those are just the tip of the iceberg as far as I'm concerned. It could even go so far on Vindman's part as sedition or treason. Now, why do I bring those things up? What disciplinary action has come out of the Department of Defense against Vindman for what he's done? Can anybody tell me? Nothing. Nothing. He has not been called on the carpet. Not that we can see, but the fact that he's continuing with these things and the other information that we know about where the DOD is in the flag ranks and in the senior executive service positions and the other bureaucrats in the Department of Defense. This is an indication that the coup has moved, not that it wasn't in the Pentagon, as I've said, amongst the flag officers, but that it's starting to take hold. That's what I see. Yesterday, and I'm going to read this to you, if you look down at the description box, I have a link to the Conservative Treehouse. And the title of it is, "The Coup Against the Sitting U.S. President Became Official on October 29th, 2019. That was the day that the military allowed Lieutenant Colonel Vindman in uniform to come in and stand against his commander-in-chief in an illegal coup attempt by the legislative branch of the government, administrative coup. What happened on that day was the military, in my estimation, joined that coup officially. We're in a lot of danger, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of danger. Let me read this to you. I took a few excerpts out of the article. The article, again, is in the description box below. It's not complete. I would have added a lot more information to it, kind of what we're doing here today. But let me read this to you so you know, okay? The word coup shifted to a new level of formalized meaning last week when members of the political resistance showed up to remove President Trump wearing military uniforms. Not only did U.S. military leadership remain silent to the optics and purpose, where the hell was General Milley? But in the testimony of Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, he admits to giving instructions to ignore the instructions from a sitting United States president. What did I just say about mutiny? Insubordination, sedition. In the absence of pushback from the Joint Chiefs, from this moment forth, the impression is tacit U.S. military support for the Vindman objective. I would not call it tacit at all, because we've not only seen Vindman do this, and now no reaction from the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff or the Joint Chiefs of Staff or the Secretary of the Army or the Chief of Staff of the Army. We've seen no action from them at all. We've seen what Kelly did. We've seen what Mattis has done. We see what Petraeus has done. We see what McRaven has done. We see what, and we could go on and on. Those are just the faces that they're allowing us to see. They're testing to see how they'll be received. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, Vindman has come under a lot of attack. But those others have not. But it shows where we are. I think the military's joined this thing at the highest levels. Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, a National Security Council official, testified before congressional committees conducting an impeachment inquiry on October 29th wearing a full military uniform. It was dress blues, by the way. Dress blues. To date, there has been no visible comment from U.S. military sanctioning Lieutenant Colonel Vindman for his decision or correcting the impression represented by Vindman's military appearance. The willful blindness is concerning, but it gets much worse. And then you can read the rest of the article from there to see what my concerns are. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care what the excuse is. The fact is that whether he's trying to stack the court, that's the wrong term, whether he's trying to get the right judges in the courts, whether he was trying to politically solve the problem by reaching across the aisle and shaking hands with the evil leftist Marxists, trying to console them into going along with his program. Whatever he thought he could do, it was viewed not as political acumen. It was viewed as weakness, a reticence to act, because the crimes had already been committed and everybody knew it. So I'm not certain what will happen in the subordinate units in the different services. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. Remember, my concerns have been that the educational institutions, not just the universities where the officers come from, but even in public schools, kindergarten through grade 12. There's been a movement to teach progressive leftist Marxist ideas and ignore the Constitution, ignore the Bill of Rights, ignore even the basics of education. Look at Common Core. Now, I didn't expect miracles. People are going to say, oh yeah, you did, Roy. I didn't expect miracles from Trump coming in. I knew what he was up against. But I also knew that if he didn't seize the initiative immediately, at least within a specific time frame and not a very long one, that this thing would mount against him, which it has. And I called that from the start. And people say, Roy, you're always bragging. No. Go back and look at my stuff. I've been calling this out since the day he said, this was 3 days, I think, after his election. After he was elected, he was president-elect. And he was asked if he was going to prosecute Clinton, and he said, no, I don't think so. They're good people. And I knew that what was going on. He was either complicit, like I said, and I'm not certain I believe that, but he was trying to negotiate, to settle this thing and try to make it go away. And I appreciate him doing that. But at some point he had to realize, and it wasn't when he said the storm was coming, okay? It still didn't happen. I'd like to go back and look at that picture of those military people and figure out exactly who they are, because where the hell are they today? I knew if he didn't act, he had to find a way to act, and he didn't. The OIG report is supposed to come out before Thanksgiving. Well, we've heard that before. And even if it does, that still doesn't mean anything. Unless somebody is collared in bracelets, no way. And now the situation is, who is Trump going to depend upon to help him in the Department of Defense? Let's talk about Mexico for a minute, because that's going to impact all of this as well. Because what's happened in Mexico over the last 2 decades is not by accident. As you know, and I've mentioned it many, many times, my documentary, Borders, Mexican Drug War or Insurgency, I pointed out that the drug war was the cover for an insurgency, and indeed that's exactly what it was and what it is. Headlines with a Voice put out I refer to Nancy Morgan Hart a lot because I like her succinct, to the point reporting and commentary. So that's why I point you to her. I like Ben Swan as well. Most of you probably know that. I haven't mentioned him in a long time, but I do. I like Ben Swan a lot. He and I have some similar background. But last night, Headlines with a Voice put up a video. It's called it's actually called Nancy Pelosi's Project Nearly Complete, and the subtitle is LeBaron's Flee to the United States. The LeBarons have been there. They were first sent down there, the Mormons in northern Mexico were actually sent down there as missionaries and colonists back in the 1800s. Then a big exodus occurred again when the LDS Church started persecuting those who didn't fully go along with its current doctrines. So a lot of people fled down there at that point. They've all been, by and large, good people, and I've explained that there was one bad apple by the name of Orville LeBaron who insisted that he become the leader superior. They call him, the senior prophet or whatever, and demanded everyone follow him under pain of death, and demanded that the rest of the people, including the people in Utah, pay him tithing. The rest of the family were wonderful people. You may not agree with their religious or spiritual viewpoints, but they were great, wonderful, hardworking, lovable people, and they were tormented by Orville LeBaron, who killed his own daughter for not going along with it, had her strangled while he was sitting in the front seat, had his executioner strangled her in the passenger seat. That's the kind of guy we're talking about. This guy, they should have taken the R out of his first name. It wasn't Orville, it was Evil LeBaron. And then he strong-armed some other people, and he also killed Dr. Rulon Allred, had him killed in Murray, which is why I knew about this situation from the top. Very, very, I know it deep. I understand the entire problem. That was the deal. It's not that the whole family is violent. Okay, that's a mischaracterization by the media so that you don't have empathy for these people and understand what they've been through. So they were persecuted by the Utah Mormons and the Utah state government. They were persecuted by this brother, Orville LeBaron. This was back in the 70s, okay? And put through a terrible ordeal there. And now the Mexican drug cartels, which I will say, as you know, that the CIA and other aspects of the U.S. government have encouraged these drug cartels. The Fast and Furious thing, which I stumbled on when I was doing my two documentaries in 2011, the homeless camps and borders, about the weapons being shipped down there in mass, thousands of them, not just through gun shops. Those were ways to further strengthen the drug cartels, weaken the people of Mexico, weaken the government, and which had already been pretty much taken over, and get money through the black market to people like, I'm going to accuse him, people like Holder, Clinton, Obama, and their underlings. It's pretty obvious what was happening there. So the LeBarons took a stand. And they were trying to prevent the incursions of the drug cartels into their little area there, their little rural area, and into their commercial enterprises, which were basically agricultural, growing pecans, almonds, and harvesting pinon and pine nuts, which I've talked about before. So they worked on that, and then one of their brothers was taken hostage and then killed. And then somehow, with some agreement with certain amount of the Mexican military, which is very bifurcated, it's a lot like our country now. It's balkanized. They allowed them to defend themselves with weapons for some time, and that was something the cartels didn't like, and that was what the payback was about to these three women and the children that they killed and maimed and all that in this attack. It was a payback. It was revenge. It was to say, you go along with us or this is what you're going to get. Well, you can see it wasn't a crossfire situation. Even Trump said that. Well, somebody told him that, but when is he going to start looking at these things for himself? And yes, he can do it. It's like Las Vegas. He just he just goes along with what he's told by the FBI. What happened there? He had to think outside the box and be his own man. He's often said that he can't depend upon the standard intelligence agencies for information. Well, who is he depending upon? Because he certainly is getting these things wrong. So The LeBarons finally decided that the lives of their families are too precious for them to stay in their homes any longer, and they're coming back here, most of them. This is a failure of the U.S. government, not just the Mexican government. Do you understand? This is what they want. Nancy Morganhart has it right. This is Nancy Pelosi's idea. She wants to destroy the constitutional framework. I'm not even going to call it a republic anymore, if I can remember. Constitutional framework that we're supposed to be following. She wants it totally destroyed. And she's so concerned about the Democrats having electional power. For now, someday they'll just seize it like they're trying to right now. And then just have the voting as a facade like they do in the banana republics to give it their tyranny some legitimacy. So here we go. What does this also tell us about illegal immigration? All these people that are coming here. Yeah, some of them, a good number of them, are fleeing the violence in Mexico. But by the same token, okay, we haven't taken care of our own home yet. MS-13 are not God's children. Okay, they're just not. And the drug cartels certainly are not, but they've been a method for money and power, not just for the Democrats, but for many Republicans as well. As you know, I'm not letting the Republicans off the hook. They haven't fooled anybody who's willing to look at the circumstances. So here we go. One of the things that Nancy Morganhart mentions in this, and please go watch it. She put it up last night. Again, it's called Nancy Pelosi's Project Nearly Completed. She points out the failure of the FBI, and I think she's actually being kind to the FBI when she says that, and Director Wray. It's not a failure. It's a deliberate subversion by the FBI. How does it go together? Because Director Wray was pointing to white supremacist organizations as being the greatest danger in our country. That's what he said. No, we're the greatest danger. We're not even white supremacists. That's a pejorative. We present a danger to their status quo, to their New World Order, to their tyranny, to their deep state, authoritarian, leftist, Marxist plans. That's true. We do. And then Barr says that Ray's doing a good job. Well, I don't know what's going to happen with Barr and Durham. We're being told by no less people than Greg Jarrett and Joe DeGeneva and those types of people that big things are coming. Well, so is the next century. Hesitation, second thoughts, lack of initiative, loss of initiative, tell the authoritarian tyrants on the other side that you're weak. And it gives them reason to go forward, which is exactly what's happened. Oh, Trump is exposing them. He's exposing everything they're doing so that when he acts, everybody will be behind him. Do you really see that happening at this point? He had a chance 2 years ago. I think he's lost it. The moment that they bring some people in handcuffs after they collar them, if in fact that happens, I think you're going to see an eruption in the government and in the country anyway. So what Trump has supposedly tried to avoid, if that's even what he was doing, is going to explode right in his lap. Then again, it might be like I've said, Barr might come back and say, we've examined the whole thing. It was just a big misunderstanding. Oh, yeah, there was the 302 thing on Flynn, which, of course, now the DOJ is saying that they just, was a typo and that they mixed it up. Their reasons for their errors are always okay. But if you make a mistake with them, they jail you for it. What kind of justice is this? All right. Well, that's all I really wanted to bring up today. I I guess to sum up what I've said, the coup wants the destruction not only of President Trump, as President Trump even realized in a tweet about 2, 3 weeks ago. It's not even against him. It's also against the American people. And when I say the American people, I'm talking about those who believe in the principles of liberty, not those who want to take them away, who call themselves Americans but are not. Remember Jesus saying, they who call themselves Jews but are not? Well, I'm saying those who call themselves Americans but are not. And they're legion, ladies and gentlemen. They've had 30 to 40 years to take over our country, and we laid there asleep. We got ourselves involved in foreign wars. We let them do that, take our money away, tax us to death, change our educational standards, teach about communism, not about the great principles of our republic. Tear down the family, destroy the relationship between men and women and encourage it. Talk about hundreds of genders. Tell kids they can get their gender changed. Defy the laws of God. Defy the laws of nature. Change time. They think to change times and laws, I think is what Isaiah said. Trump even pushing the LGBTQ deal. Pedophilia, not yet, but that's coming. That's down the line, as most of you know. The government's now funding these drag queen deals in public schools and libraries. It's not going to be long. So we had a chance to turn this around, and I'm going to say it again. Unless Trump grows some real cojones and gets the right people behind him, and it doesn't take many, but he's got to act aggressively. I don't care what Barr and Durham are doing. When you get, the military was never totally behind him because the military industrial complex owns the DOD, the Pentagon. It does. And they're going to do things for money and power, not for the good of the American Republic, the American principles. We've been gone away from that for a long time. I saw it when I was at the Command and General Staff College and the War College. I saw it. I saw it. I think I know how Trump can do this. Obtaining the right people from the military to help, and those who are considered vets now, no longer active, retired, or just not in, period. But yes, it will signal something to the tyrants that they won't like, but we're going down that road anyway. Are we going to go down on our knees? Or are we going to stand and demand that they be held accountable? And not just with words. I'm tired of tweeting. I'm tired of rallies. I'm tired of the feel-good stuff. We've got to look at this thing square in its face and demand that Trump do the same thing and stop dancing around. And if he continues, they're going to kill him, either literally or politically. It's going to happen. And it's going to happen quickly. I'll refrain from putting in my last judgment on this, because if Bill Barr and John Durham really do start to do something, maybe we can stop this. But at this point, they're also going to have to be willing to arrest flag officers. Do you understand that now? They'll have to be willing to arrest flag officers for taking part in this coup. And unless they're willing to do that, this isn't going to turn around. It is entered into a full military coup at this point. And it doesn't have to be the entire military. You understand that. Study military coups in third world countries and see how they work. The entire military doesn't have to be involved, ladies and gentlemen. All that has to happen is that you get the good folks to stand down, either by pretense, by orders, by innuendo, by their commanders being on the side of the coup and just stopping them from doing anything. It doesn't take many. Go watch Valkyrie. What that colonel in the German army was trying to do, and I forget his name right now, trying to get the country of Germany back away from Hitler and the Nazis, was an admirable thing. Look how he did it. He almost succeeded, and it didn't take the whole military to do it. It took subterfuge, deceit. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in a lot of trouble. The military, as I said, I haven't trusted them. Not the rank and this is really true. Sean Hannity will say, "Oh, the rank and file, the FBI, they're 99% of them are good." No, they're not. In the military, primarily, most of the rank and file is still good. I've said that with a few caveats because of the schooling system and the types of things that have been going on in our country for so many decades. But by and large, they're still good people until they start to use it for political purposes. And that starts normally in the officer ranks at about lieutenant colonel. Normally lieutenant colonels aren't fully into it until just before they become 06s, full colonels. And that's almost a requirement in some regards. Not always, but many. But certainly when you go from there to the general officer ranks, it's almost all political. You don't even have to be a good officer at that point. That's a mistaken idea. You think, oh, these guys have shown their mettle. No, they haven't. They've shown their willingness to brown nose and to do what they're told, and to embrace the nefarious goals of others to your detriment. So all it takes is a few in the right places to control the entire military to keep them from coming to Trump's and our defense. Trump does need to bring the troops home. And he needs to make sure that he places commanders over them who will do the right thing. That's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry that I have to go there today, but there's just no other way to handle this. There just isn't. Okay, what are we going to do? I've told you, we can't act on our own. I know a lot of people say, we're going to hit the streets. We're going to... No, you're not. Okay, no, you're not. The most important thing is that you get your families ready, that you stop listening to the nonsense, and women stop fighting against your husbands, and husbands stop deprecating your wives. People say, well, Roy, you didn't do a good job on that. Well, I learned my lesson, okay? Let's just put it that way. I've been listening to a lot of things about, well, that's another topic. Maybe for a nightcap one night, about narcissism and those kinds of things. But at any rate, you better start at home. Make sure things are right there as best you can, because the fight's going to be on a low level. Oh, they're going to be nasty at the high level, but it's a high stakes thing up there for taking the reins of government and power. But you got to make it through this thing, and I've said it before. Prep, pray, stay out of the way. All that stuff. If Trump finally gets the cojones to start calling people like myself, Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer, et cetera, to come and help him, I'm here waiting. But I'm not going to act on my own. I'm sorry. That's foolishness, and don't even think about it, other than self-defense. And people will say, well, I'm a plant because of that, right? Oh, yeah, Roy's deep state because he's telling you not to do anything. I am doing something. I'm doing it right now. What are you doing? But discretion is the better part of valor, and you have to know when to strike. Oh, well, that fits for Trump too. Yeah, that's true. It does. But it's pretty obvious he's lost initiative when he has military officers showing up at his coup hearings in uniform. And the DOD not doing anything about it, but tacitly agreeing, as the conservative treehouse points out. You got to stop thinking that this is sugar-coated candy that they're giving you. It's not. It's poison. And I know, I'm going to bring this up. This might make some noise in the mic, but I got to be able to see this. Cuba Void 3 says, I'm not overly righteous, but these things are meant to fall, in my humble opinion. You're right. These worldly systems are meant to fall. And I can't disagree with you on that. Man has proven he can't govern himself. Despite our great experiment here, which was rule by the people, with the government being subservient to the people, that didn't last long, did it? You know what I've come to? I enjoy a good fight. I've been in one crusade or another most of my life. And I look back, and I'm not saying any of that was wasted, but I wonder how much difference it really made, except in me. And that's really what's important. But after all that's said and done, yeah, I want to be active in something, but what I really would like is, go to a beach and sit there with my wife, or go to the mountains, sit in a cabin. And it's not old age. It's experience. It's when you find out what really matters. Because you really can't change the world. You can only change yourself. I don't care if Trump's being poisoned or not, Gulvat. I don't care. If he didn't realize what he was getting into, then we put our trust in the wrong guy. He still has a chance to fix this, but I'm not. But every day, I don't care what Jarrett says. I don't care what DeGeneva says. I don't care about all the people that say that he's about ready to hammer everybody. I'm a gonna. What you gonna do, LT? Cheryl Deck, you're saying Vindman is being removed from the NSA position. Yeah, maybe. Slowly but surely. Why wasn't he taken out before this? And I'm not sure that's going to happen. I see other people saying quite the opposite, that he'll stay up through his tenure until, May of 2020, something like that? I don't know. It depends on who you listen to. The fact is, he shouldn't have been there in the first place. Nancy Morgan Hart, was it her? I think she says, was it her? I forget who it was. No, it was Gigi Sims. Gigi Sims was saying, I'm not sure exactly how the NSC works. But obviously what happens is these other government agencies send people, they task them to the NSC, either for a period of time or whatever. And the president really doesn't have a whole lot of say over that. And not that he couldn't, but that these agencies bring these people in. Well, who is the gatekeeper there? Who has Trump put in charge to be the gatekeeper? And if they send somebody there that they shouldn't, that gatekeeper should say, you're going back. You're not going to be here. And apparently it's not working that way. So I don't know that it says he's being removed. Cheryl Degg, but like I said, I've heard the other, so who knows what's really happening. It seems like nothing we're told, no matter who it comes from, really is true. I'm going to skip over a lot of these because I don't want to go too long this morning. Lots of other things to do. Of course, you hear me say that all the time too. Oh, I like this. Spiral Bear, hi, how you doing, buddy? Yes, sir. Nancy Morgan Hart put it on point by educating people about the Pelosi family power from old mob and establishment. Yep. And look at Hillary Rodham Clinton. Comes from the mob Rodhams, the Chicago mob. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know about the Bolivian stuff too, Gulf Vet. I know. They have so much going on, and our government and its surrogates and its agents are evil. It's just so obvious. across the board. We're evil, evil to the core. Principles are good, but everything's been subverted. You talk about being, remember that, I don't know who did it, but there was a video a couple of years back where a guy was videotaping, I think it was in Arizona, I'm not sure, but a cop is coming up to this guy and puts his hand on his gun. The guy, I think, was just outside in his house or something, and was, video recording something going on. Maybe the cops are doing. The cop comes over with his hand on his gun and says, "What are you, one of those constitutionalists?" So now it's a pejorative. It's an insult. You're considered an extremist if you believe in the constitutional principles of the United States. And yet that cop took an oath to it. He probably never read the damn thing, just like I don't think Trump has. It's all a facade. So you're right. Like I said, government by men, it's precarious at best. Yeah. Good job, Mr. Shea. Rick Shea, he quotes Samuel Adams where he says, "It is in the interest of tyrants to reduce the people to ignorance and vice, for they cannot live in any country where virtue and knowledge prevail." They're talking about the tyrants. The tyrants can't live in a country where virtue and knowledge prevail. Thomas Jefferson said much the same thing. And they've done everything they can to dumb us down. Yeah, I agree, Melinda Ann Burns. Protecting the people, bring those troops home. I know. We talk about, protecting other countries. Look at what happened to our dual citizens in Mexico just lately. And I've been talking about this since 2011. Yeah, Liza Jean Williams has mentioned that Stranahan does excellent, thorough research. Yeah, he gets it down to the nitty gritty. That's true. He's not superficial in his looks. I think he's a little. He expects others to be able to do the same thing, like he expects that from Dan Bongino. He was very critical of Dan Bongino's book Exonerated, saying, "Well, Bongino didn't mention this, and he didn't mention that, and he didn't mention this. Primarily the situation between the Clintons and those things, Weiner and some of those connections." But Lee gets into the weeds a little bit too much, like George Webb does sometimes. Sometimes he talks so much, like me, gives so much information and gets down into the weeds so far that people can't see the big picture, which is really what's important. So I think Dan really, it's not that he's ignoring those connections. I don't think he's a traitor. He might be going along with what Fox wants him to do, I suppose. But Dan's focused more on the big issue, the big picture. Lee gets down to into the minutia, which is necessary, but I think Lee expects everybody to do the same, and it just doesn't work all the time. It's like a commander getting briefed by a staff on an operations plan before it's finalized into an operations order where they actually conduct the operation. He doesn't want all the detail that the staff has worked out. He wants to listen, and he wants to see what his concerns are and have those addressed. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, if there's something really critical that he's missing, the staff should bring it up. But he doesn't need to know all the minutia. As a matter of fact, it's detrimental if he does. Okay? So, and the people, the general population is the same way. Yeah, Cheryl Degg, you're saying Durham and Horowitz are joined reports now before the grand jury. Really? You get that from Joe DeGeneva? You get that from Greg Jarrett? I don't know. It's like I said, I don't believe any of this horse shit until I see somebody in cuffs. I don't care what they tell us. I don't care what they say. There's no reason that people couldn't have been arrested at this point. At least a handful. There is no reason that should not have been done by this point. I did entertain the possibility, by the way, in case you're wondering, that you know, it just was an entertaining thought. I don't think it's true that this appearance by Kelly and Vindman and these others to be going along with the coup is to further entrap and not entrap, further trap people like Schiff and Pelosi, etc. You know, but I couldn't entertain that very long because all I had to do is look at Vindman's background, and I knew that wasn't true. It was just hopium on my part that it was a trick that was being played on these administrative and legislative coup plotters. But I'm afraid that when you look into the backgrounds of these people and what's been going on, I couldn't entertain that thought for very long. Jack Kennedy, I agree. I don't even know if he'll do that. He says if Barr limits himself to prosecuting only those in the upcoming IG report were genuinely sunk. Same with the Durham report. Even Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer, I think Dan Bongino said it too, and Lou Dobbs I think has said it. It needs to be an entire clean out of all bureaucracies 2 tiers down, at a minimum. Not necessarily all arrests. I can't repeat that, Val. Sorry. Okay, let's see here. They're all crooked. A lot of you are saying they're all crooked. A lot, we're getting disillusioned even with the people that said they're our champions. I know that the deep state and the entrenched bureaucracy is hard to deal with. I know that. I know it is. But it doesn't help when you keep adding them into your administration. Even Trump said that. He's upset with them bringing in Never Trumpers into his administration. Well, he ought to listen to his own counsel because he himself has done that, as I pointed out. Somebody says here, can you plug George Webb? I've talked about George before. I appreciate his intelligence, his thorough investigations. But again, George Webb gets into the weeds so far that he loses most people. He can't give the big picture. He loses us all in the minutia. I'm not disparaging him in that regard. He's put out a lot of great stuff, but at the same time, it's just unless he's briefing intelligence people in the field, in reality, if that's what he's doing, it's really over the top. No, not Nancy Everhart cameo bear. It's headline. It's on YouTube. Headlines with a voice. Sometimes she's on here as a moderator for me. I'm being blue with the wrench. Headlines with a voice. She goes by the other pseudonym of Nancy Morgan Hart. That's not her real name either, but that's her other pseudonym, Nancy Morgan Hart. If you look up Nancy Morgan Hart in one of the search engines, you're going to find out about this historical figure, this woman who was a patriot. But that's not who she really is. That's just another pseudonym. So go to Headlines with a Voice. That's what you want to look for. I'm not going to get into the JFK Jr. stuff. I'm not going to do that. Like I said, there are other iterations of this Q phenomenon that are coming out now. And while I still say it's okay to get information from there, all of it has to be with caveats and serious, really strong discernment. One of the things, if you remember what happened, he was very much into the Q thing, this thing with Field McConnell that's going on in Timothy Homeseth. Field McConnell said that it was about a month ago, I think, maybe not even that long ago, he said that Obama was executed at Gitmo. And then when Obama showed up live somewhere, you never heard from Phil McConnell correcting himself, right? So there's a lot of bad information out there just that happens like that. So Joe Bowling, you say Trump needs 4 more years to take down the deep state. Next term, he will have the flexibility to wipe them out. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Damn it. My Republican insider was telling me about that the moment Trump got elected. But do you see what happens when you don't seize the initiative? Joe Bowling, they're not going to let him have a second term, even if he wins the election. Do you understand? He lost the initiative. He didn't act. They see it as weakness. They're moving on him, and they're moving on us. That attitude of he's going to fix it later. Have you ever heard of the old saying, never put off until tomorrow what you can do today? And I could take you through a whole bunch of military things. Yeah, I know. He studied Sun Tzu. He's letting him know. He's pretending to be weak, so he draws him in. There's a limit to that philosophy, okay? And the limit is there's a time to act, and if you fail to act, you lose the battle. Bottom line. And I think we've passed that point. Again, I'm waiting to see what Barr and Durham are going to do. But at this point in time, it looks to me as if the military is now gone from Trump. Even if he had some loyal people in there, the commanders, the upper commanders, are going to put a squash on anything that helps Trump out at this point. That's the way I see it. Just like I explained at the beginning of this thing. And without the military, Trump's dead in the water. Dead in the water. Do you understand? Yeah, Chronic 321, you're saying Barr never declassified anything. And Trump didn't follow through on that either. Why not shine the light on that entire thing right away? It's like I said, get some Marines, get the marshals, go in there, seize that stuff. Trump have a team put together, declassify everything, put it out to the public. Oh no, we can't do that. Yes, that's what we must do. He's not. Okay, it's been over an hour. I'm going to jump to the back part of it. Valkyrie, yeah, Denise J. That's the situation. Valkyrie was the name of the movie that Tom Cruise did on that whole thing with Germany. Yeah, Edelson James, you're absolutely right. I'm going to read this to everybody. The Marxists have already announced what they want to do to their opposition. When they state it openly, then they are showing they are showing that they mean it. They have the chutzpah and the backing. Yep. You're right, Edelson. You're right. Okay, I'm going to be done here now. Thanks for coming, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you. Hopefully the transmission was not too bad today. I don't know what's wrong with like I said, when I was filming Santa Finds His Elves and the Crimson Thread, I used a lot of green screen and blue screen effects, but that's with a camera where you can really adjust it. These webcams are kind of, they're really tricky to use. Along with the OBS, I'm sure the OBS is capable of it, but the camera that I used this time just wasn't up to the task, or I would have had a little different background, not this one that I've used before. But maybe for the sake of simplicity and speed, I just need to set it up like this, or have a background that's actually there, not on a green or blue screen when I use this particular setup. So it might be a little mundane to watch over a period of time, but yeah, sometimes KISS is the best way to go. Keep it simple, stupid. Okay, everyone. You know my concerns. Not that maybe that matters to anyone, but I have to say it openly because if I don't, then I feel like I'm being well, I'm just not doing my job. So I hope that all this isn't as it appears to me to be. I hope that this can be turned around, but in the end, even if it is, you have to be able to protect yourselves, your families, and to make it through. So do what you can to do that. All right. And I am a little melancholy today. Some of you have probably noticed that. I am. I knew that the military didn't take its oath of office seriously at the upper levels once they get there. People like Lieutenant Colonel Hickman, who outed Lieutenant Colonel Vindman for the socialist, leftist Marxist that he is. There are probably a lot of them, but that's why he retired as a lieutenant colonel. Do you see my point? He didn't make it to 06. Hickman didn't. I'll bet you Vindman does. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks a bunch. I'm not sure. I want to do a nightcap this week, but I haven't really nailed anything down yet. I'm not sure what it should be. Some of my other plans kind of fallen through. You know, when you're a small show like I am, small budget, small impact, all that, it's hard to draw really interesting people. Michelle was great. Dan was great for his input on the other night with the paranormal equipment. But some of the other things that I've wanted to do, I'll just be honest with you, people are reticent to be associated with Right Pot. I don't know if I should do that. Okay, so I am running into those problems. And that's okay, that's all right. But it might be that I just don't quite get that thing going the way that I would like. Okay, why am I confessing to you? Well, because I don't like to BS. Okay, I don't like to pretend to be something I'm not, despite what people out there say. It's really not like a lot of people say I am. All right, okay. I can't think of anything else to do. We've gone through most of the chat, and all I can say is prep, pray, stay out of the way, keep your situational awareness on high. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground, and just be ready to don't take any offensive action unless you have competent authority to back you up. If you don't have competent authority, ladies and gentlemen, self-defense is about all you can get away with, and that's going to be hard enough. It's justified, but they're not going to let you think it's justified. They're going to pull shenanigans on you like the BLM, the FBI, and the DOJ did to the Bundys after they put snipers on women and children, and then the people reacted to that. But the government can do that and be held immune from it. Yeah, right. That's what they do. So even in self-defense, you got to be careful. All right? Okay, we'll see you later. Out here for now.